But it does segue into that second response, right? So how's your mental health and your physical health intertwined? It's just that you cannot separate the two. So you can't say, all right, today's gonna be a tough day. Let me take my feelings out and put them aside right here, my thoughts and my feelings and everything, and put them aside. Y'all just sit right there and wait till I get finished with it and going to work. It doesn't work like that, right? Everywhere you go, there you are. Okay, so when you're in the gym, right? I know that hit, right?
Hey, you guys, you're about to tune into a dope conversation between myself and Dr. Vaughn Gay, who is a licensed therapist and the owner of Holistic Atlanta. His practice helps people to improve their mental health. And what I love the most about this conversation is that we intertwine physical health and mental health. And he gave his perspective on how to take a holistic approach to improving your mental well-being. And this is a great opportunity for me to talk about one of the sponsors of the podcast, because what a lot of people don't know is that therapy, which is a growing need for many people, is oftentimes covered by your health insurance. And so many people are turned away by the out-of-pocket costs associated with therapy when they could be covered by your health insurance. And that's why Access Benefit Consultants is such an important company in this space and is playing such a key role in getting individuals like myself covered so that they can have access to the mental or physical health care that they need. Access Benefit Consultants is my parents' company, and they have over 100 agents that are qualified to sit down with you, determine what your healthcare needs are, and then make sure that you have a plan that fits your needs. One of the common misconceptions is that if you don't have a job, then you can't have insurance coverage, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I myself don't have a traditional W-2 job, yet was still able to obtain coverage with the help of Access Benefit Consultants. Basically, you work with one of their agents and you give them a little bit of information, and they get back to you within 24 hours with several plan options for you to choose from. And even if you don't like talking on the phone, or if you're antisocial and you don't want to see anybody in person, they have an online quote tool where you can fill that information out, get a quote delivered directly to your inbox immediately, and allow you to select a plan from there, and taking your experience from start to finish all in the same place. Access Benefit Consultants is my go-to company for anything insurance related, and it should be yours too. Whether you have coverage or not, if you have questions about your insurance coverage, or if you want to figure out whether or not you qualify for a more robust plan, or maybe you want to save some money, I highly encourage you to reach out to Access Benefit Consultants and see if they might be able to help you out. You can do that by going to accessbenefits.com, scrolling down to the bottom of the page, and filling out the form so one of their agents can get in contact with you in no time. Again, that's Access, AXXESS, benefits.com. All right. Hey, everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Culture of Health podcast. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a distinguished guest who is really at the forefront of promoting holistic well-being and advocating for underserved communities in the field of mental health. So today, joining us is Dr. Vaughn Gay, a licensed professional counselor and renowned mental health practitioner based in Metro Atlanta, ATL, for those of you guys who are familiar with the city. Dr. Gay's commitment to comprehensive mental health services, education, and advocacy has had a profound impact on underrepresented populations and underserved communities throughout his career. As the founder of Holistic Atlanta, which is a groundbreaking healthcare startup, doing some really dope stuff. It's almost like a record label for mental health practitioners, but they're leveraging virtual health, telemedicine, and health technology to expedite health outcomes in the specialties of mental health and developmental pediatrics. Dr. Gay's journey in mental health began early, fueled by a desire to serve others and a recognition of the need for more Black male mental health practitioners and advocates. And over the years, he's provided vital counseling services to individuals and families, particularly in the communities of Southwest Atlanta and South DeKalb. Having served as the Assistant Director of Counseling Services at Morehouse School of Medicine, Dr. Gay has played a pivotal role in developing programs to address the mental and emotional wellness of student physicians and residents at Grady Hospital. So everything that we're going to dig into today is coming from not just what he's learned through his educational career, but also like in practice, boots on the ground, actually talking and dealing with real people. And his work has been recognized by some very prominent organizations here in Atlanta. And if I ain't boost him up enough, make sure you listen to the rest of this episode so you can see why this introduction was so detailed. So again, man, Dr. Gay, thank you for joining us on this podcast. How you feeling, man? How's life?
Man, so of course the automated responses, man, I'm great. I'm fine. This has been Mental Health Awareness Month, and had a whole calendar laid out of content we were going to produce and interviews and all those kinds of things. I hit a place of burnout probably like the end of April, and I had a decision to make. I was either going to try to push through, like we normally do, like we're conditioned to do as men, right? Be strong, push through.
Yeah.
I had to say, I got to start practicing what I preach, and I really just, if you notice even my social media too, I kind of just turned the off button, right? And I've been chilling. I really kind of took a step back because I felt myself getting to a place where I previously been burned out, working really hard and everything. So today I'm feeling really good, right? This month was a little up and down, but we're heading into Men's Health Month in the month of June, which is something that is very, very important to me. So we're gonna use this as a little bit of a springboard to get our energy back, get back outside in the sun, right? And do all those fun summer things. So that is my true, authentic response on how I'm feeling today. And I think that's so important for us to talk very truthfully about how we're feeling, not just presenting that facade, that face of being strong. So I am here. That's what we say a lot. I'm here. I'm present, right?
Yeah.
But
that speaks to me because I ask people like, "How you doing?" And then they be like, "Oh, I'm good." And then I stop and be like, "How you really doing?
How you really? For real." And it's so important.
I appreciate that.
Your go-to folks, right? You can kind of just check in that they would appreciate just reaching out. I have a couple colleagues like that. Just every now and then I get a DM from me. Hey man, however you feel in the day, just know you're doing a good job, right? Keep it pushing. If you need to take some time for yourself, make sure you do that. So authenticity. We're gonna talk about that today, vulnerability, and then how all that intertwines with, our physical, not mental.
I love that. All right, cool. I'm just gonna jump off, man. I noticed like you are a licensed professional counselor. Is there a difference between that and like a traditional therapist that most people are familiar with? And if so, what's like the professional distinction between the two?
Gotcha. So I'll give you the whole breakdown to kind of answer that question. All right. You have, we hear about psychiatrists, psychologists, psychotherapists, a whole bunch of, psycho, this is, so what's kind of who's who, right? Really quickly, your psychiatrists or your medical doctors, they prescribe your medications, all right? Your psychologists are your PhD mental health practitioners. They do lots of evaluations, a little bit of therapy. Your psychotherapists are licensed at the master's level. Sometimes they will go on and get their doctorate, which I did. These are your psychotherapists. These are ones like your boots on the ground. They're doing most of the therapy sessions, resource allocation, connectivity, with people within the community. Your licensed professional counselors, your licensed clinical social workers, and then your licensed marriage and family therapists. These are the ones that most people work with, and those are individuals that we call therapists. It does not, it does not devalue anything that, other folks do within the actual field. But some are specialized in medicine, some are specialized in full evaluations, others are specialized in the actual therapy sessions. All are needed, in an interconnected chain to be able to do what we do.
Got you. So tell me about being a licensed professional counselor.
It's probably the coolest job in the world, right? Like we get to learn about people for who they really are, right? We get to know, the true Austin, right? That, most people in Austin's life may not be able to get to see. It's a privileged position, right? People are really coming to you in a place of vulnerability, right? They've already had that conversation with themselves that they don't want to talk to nobody, okay, I finally need to talk to somebody. Let me find somebody I think is kind of cool enough, right? So they've done a lot of digging. There's a lot of trust that's placed in you before you even have that first conversation. I remember one time my client said to me, hey, I read your reviews. I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I got reviews on the internet. Yikes, right? But people really want to make sure that before they start that process is someone that they know that they can trust and that they know are going to get really good, authentic responses from. It's a learning process for me as well. I tell my clients all the time, you all learning from me, but I'm learning so much from different clients. I get to talk to parents and teenage boys and I have clients that are 40 and 50-year-old women. I get to learn so much about life, all right, and kind of getting
Yeah.
free game from other folks from their experiences. So again, it's that privileged position to be able to walk in a journey with someone. And then when you have multiple
Hmm.
clients, you're walking in multiple journeys. It's you low key feel like you're doing a part of God's work, and that's truly how I look at it. All of my practitioners, they cut from that same cloth, that same mold. Really getting fired up and motivated about helping people. Like it's
Hmm.
intrinsic rewards on 1,000.
Yeah, I love that, man. So I feel the same way about what I do. Like I feel like helping people to learn how to take care of their bodies is doing God's work. And what you're doing is helping people learn how to like take care of and prioritize their minds. And what oftentimes goes unnoticed and undiscussed is how the two are connected with one another. And I mean, everybody listening to this podcast, I'm extremely passionate about health, but I've never gotten into the mental aspect of it. And one of the first things that comes to mind is like the decision-making process. How is the decision-making process um, impacted by mental health? And, how can, um, what are your thoughts on the connection between like mental health and physical health and then how they end up intertwining with one another? Now, if you're new to the podcast and you're not familiar with Supergut, they're a company that's helping people improve their gut health by adding more resistant starch fiber to their diet. These products have been clinically proven to regulate digestion, boost metabolism, manage healthy weight, balance blood sugar, and curb cravings, which is a perfect segue because I want to talk to you guys about my cravings. I have a sweet tooth. Now, my health is really important to me, so I can't always indulge my sweet tooth the way I want to with candy and cake and all the ice cream. What I have to do is implement smart choices into my diet so that I can satisfy my sweet tooth while still improving my health. And that's where these Supergut bars come in, okay? This is not a flex. This is a halfway open bar from last night. These Supergut bars not only have 10 grams of protein, but they also have 10 grams of prebiotic fiber. So in the evening, when those sugar cravings eventually kick in, I grab the chocolate Supergut bar, which I'm holding right here in my hands, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it tastes just like a brownie. I close my eyes, I chew very slowly. I only eat half of it because it's pretty satiating and I don't want to go to bed with the feeling that food is on my stomach. But imagine eating something like this in the middle of the day when you're hungry, but you just had a meal. You get the feeling of satisfying your sweet tooth. You get the feeling of satisfying your cravings, and you benefited your gut in the process. These prebiotic fibers, they sit in your large intestines, ferment, and then they produce something called short-chain fatty acids, which is where all the magic is. These are beneficial to your health in so many ways, and Supergut makes it really easy to get this fiber into your diet through shakes, bars, and resistant starch fiber, which you can mix into just about anything. We've mixed it into oatmeal, spaghetti, juices. It barely has any texture. It doesn't add a taste, but it automatically adds 8 grams of fiber to whatever meal we're eating. So if you don't believe in the power of fiber just yet, I'm going to strongly suggest you give Supergut products a try. You can do that by checking out the link in the show notes or just head straight over to supergut.com and give their products a try. I strongly suggest the Supergut bars, both in chocolate and strawberry. Those are my favorites. They cure my sweet tooth, they cure my cravings, and they help improve my gut health. If you listen to any of the previous episodes of this podcast, you've probably heard me talking about blood sugar before. Now, when you hear the word blood sugar, you're probably thinking about prediabetes or diabetes, and you're right to associate it with those conditions. However, you might not be thinking about brain fog, infertility, depression, and many of the other real life, everyday conditions that are a result of unstable blood sugar. And I didn't learn how deeply our blood sugar was connected to our experience with everyday life until I started monitoring my own blood sugar with Levels. Levels, who is a partner of this podcast, is helping people see how food is affecting their health via continuous glucose monitoring. Now, when I first started monitoring my blood sugar, seeing how high it was spiking after eating certain carbs was not necessarily surprising to me. But what was surprising is seeing how dysregulated my blood sugar was after making consistent poor choices over an extended period of time. And that's how we kind of look at our nutrition. We know that eating some things are going to cause a negative short-term effect, but it's very hard for us to see the damaging long-term implications of making poor decisions on a daily basis. And that's why I love Levels, because they put the data in your face. It's really hard to miss it. And when you see that your blood sugar is dysregulated, you can track it back to the decisions you made over several previous days and give you actionable steps to improve it moving forward. The experience with the app is flawless. You can log your meals, it tells you when your blood sugar is spiking, and it even offers suggestions for you to have stable blood sugar with future meals based on the input that you give it. So, if you can't tell already, I'm a really huge fan of Levels. I've been monitoring for over a year now, and I'm still learning more about how my body is reacting to food. Now, if you want to learn how your body is reacting to food, I'm going to encourage you to go to the link in the show notes where you can get a free additional month. No, 2 free additional months on top of your annual membership. If you don't want to go to that link, you can simply go to levels.link/metabolismmentor to take advantage of that exclusive offer. Again, that's levels.link/metabolismmentor.
Gotcha. So I'll answer those in 2 different buckets. In terms of the decision-making process, there are probably about 10,000 decisions that you have to make in a single day. Most of them are subconscious. If they're subconscious and involuntary, then they're going to be based on your past experiences, right? How you were raised, the current environment that you're living in. Okay. And so what one person may choose to do in response to a certain trigger or stimuli in the environment, someone in that same house may respond differently. Okay. So there's a lot of layers that come in when it comes to making actual decisions. But, depending on if you're having a mentally, a healthy mental day or an unhealthy mental day, right? That can have an impact, on your decisions that you make. Think about this. Think about your son, right? Let's just say that, yesterday while he was at school, he had a little cough, he's still playing, having a good little time, right? He gets home late on that evening, his energy is a little low, but he's still eating and playing. But then he goes to bed and wakes up that next morning, got that little thing on his chest, right? He's coughing a little bit. So he's having a physical unhealthy day, right? And so he has a decision to make. And he has to decide whether or not he wants to be able to conjure up the energy to go to school, or we just want to have a little pity party at the house, right? Hey, mom, hey, daddy, I ain't feeling too good. Can I stay home, right? And so the same way that, your physical health can impact your decision making, same thing with your mental health, right? You may just be in a funk. I think when I was describing when we opened up, I've been in a little bit of a funk, right? Baseball, they call it a slump. You got that hitter slump where you just can't hit that damn ball. But you got the skill set, you have the time, but it's just like, man, I cannot get the engine moving. Okay. And so I've been having, mentally unhealthy days, and it's okay to claim that, right? No one's perfect. No one is going to be, on point on their square, all the time. So I've been having some mentally unhealthy days. And so by identifying and claiming it, I can now be proactive and taking steps and getting my ass back in line. Right. So that's the first response. But it does segue into that second response, right? So how's your mental health and your physical health intertwined? It's just that you cannot separate the two. So you can't say, all right, today's going to be a tough day. Let me take my feelings out and put them aside right here. My thoughts and my feelings and everything. I'm putting them aside. Y'all just sit right there and wait till I get finished with it and going to work. It doesn't work like that, right? Everywhere you go, there you are. Okay. So when you're in the gym, right? I know that hit, right? When you're in the gym, there are some days where you really are super motivated, right? And there are other days where you need to go to that gym to release stress. There are other days you go into that gym to where you're upset, right? And there are other days where you go in there, you're like, man, I could do 2-a-days a day. Okay. So there's no way to separate your psyche or your mind from your brain. And that brain is an organ within our bodies. And so yes, everything starts with a healthy or an unhealthy thought. If you look at it like that, that gives you the foundation of how those things are intertwined together.
That's crazy. Everywhere you go, there you are. Man, that hits for me because, like you said earlier, as a man, we're kind of taught to compartmentalize our feelings so that we can push through that. I'm guilty of doing that all the time. I do that very often, but what are some of the common downfalls that people are seeing when they compartmentalize their emotions in order to try to power through the day? Are there some common side effects or I don't know, it's just effects in general that you see in practice?
Yeah. So the first thing is that people will often say, well, no one is hearing me. I feel like I'm not being heard. You're right, because you're compartmentalizing your feelings. You're not speaking towards, the true. And I think I'm going to use this word authenticity a lot, right? You're not being authentic, with yourself. You're not being honest with yourself. Okay. We live in this hyper sensitive world. All right. We are being assaulted. The sensory, it's like sensory overload. Right. And then also we are being expected to be the perfect version of ourselves every single day. All right. We cannot post a blooper to the reel. We have to post the highlight reel. All right. If we look at kind of like the playoffs that's going on right now, there's some players, some big time players, big name players who, oof, if they could erase this from their highlight reel, they would, right? But they
Yep.
can't, right? It's part of the story. It's part of the journey, right? So the most important thing, that one can do is to, be completely honest with where you are, right? Communication. We often hear about, people not having, good communication skills. This is because we're shying away from the truth. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be rejected. So because of that, we have to present our perfect version of ourselves, right? The really
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing is that vulnerability is probably one of the safest places you can actually be,
Mm.
right? Because that's how you can actually say, all right, here's my truth. Now you got to be, you deal with it how you deal with it. You receive it how you receive it. I'm going to continue on about my day. All right. And by not holding those, to answer your question a little bit better, by holding those things in, all right, resentment starts to build, right? You feel that you're not being heard. You may start to isolate yourself, turn inwardly, all right, a lot more. That's where you start to see people starting to express certain things on social media and their stories and their status. And you're like, oh, well, what's kind of going on with Austin, man? Everything that he did posted, that shade, like, blink twice, man. Like, what is going on? So, and this is why it's so important for us to have these combos because all of us are stewards of our people, right? Spouses, friends, etc. So when you see your person's behavior profile, kind of going in a little bit of a different pattern, that's where you can say, hey man, hey, if you need to talk, I'm here. Right. If you want to go grab something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
let's go do that. You want to grab a drink? Cool, let's do it. Right. But so what we're seeing is by holding those thoughts in and those feelings and all that, it's just it's like a virus. You hold it in your body, it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna eat away at you.
Yeah, that's crazy because, for vulnerability to be a safe, vulnerability does not feel safe. you know,
No.
it doesn't feel comfortable because, I think, especially when you're in an intimate relationship,
Yeah.
being vulnerable, oftentimes it can be received the wrong way, or it can cause someone else to set somebody else off, regardless of whether or not that's your truth. Do you think that there's some type of method that we need to like follow in our mind in order to get things off of our chest, but in a healthy way?
When I said earlier on that I learned a lot, by being a therapist, it forced me to have to be vulnerable, right? So how can I
Mm-hmm.
ask or, train someone to be strong in that space? But then for me in my own personal life, I'm like, I wouldn't share that with nobody. You know, um, I think when I had to start working with teenagers, well, no, young adults, and they were having struggles in school, I had to be very honest with my own personal story, right? I played around. I had a lot of fun in college, right? Like if I didn't have to go to class, college would have been perfect. And I said that a lot, like, damn, well, I didn't go to class, otherwise this thing would be cool. And so I kind of dinked and dunked. It took me a while to mature, right? It took me a while to be able to get to a place to where I actually was able to be successful. Took a lot of
Mm-hmm.
failure. That's why I learned failure is a part of success. Okay. That took a lot of strength for me to be able to say that because, it's a knock on my ego, right? It's a knock on that perfectionism, that we hold ourselves up to. And so by being vulnerable with my story, it made things a lot more realistic and achievable to that young person that has no hope, right? So being a therapist forced me into that box of vulnerability without even knowing it. And I was able to build strength within that, right? So in terms of, that I'm a licensed therapist, I don't expect everyone to be able to take that on and just say, okay, cool, we can run with that. But some things you can actually do, and just in practice, I think the one of the easiest things is we kind of do this now. Hey, how are you doing? Be truthful in your response, right? Um, People gonna judge, people judge anyway, right? I think it's that fear of judgment a lot of times where, ooh, let me not say that because I don't want them to look at me like I'm crazy, all right?
Yep.
Okay. You might be surprised. Man, already look at you. So let it roll, let it rip, man. Um, Ultimately, it's on a case by case basis. There's a level of comfortability you have to have with certain folks. I'll say, don't tell all your business to everyone. But those that are, your village, people that you really do depend on, those that are proven, that they have your best interest at heart. And, for those that don't, use what you share with them against you, that's the biggest thing, right? Those are folks, you
Hmm.
can really shed your layers back and just really let folks know who you are.
Yeah. Earlier in the conversation, you said there's a difference between mental health and, I think you said not mental issues, um, mental illness. That's the word. Yeah. So you said there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. I liken that to like the human body. There is oftentimes what we call like disease, right? That's like the end goal. But there are lots of small, like micro moments that is our health that ultimately leads us to physical illness. Is it the same way with like our brain, with our mind, where you have mental health until you have mental illness? And if so, what are some common milestones that
Yeah.
people hit along the way where they can like kind of know what trajectory they're headed towards?
Yeah, so this is a really, really good question, okay? Because when you're looking at the whole scope, like the umbrella term of mental health, you're talking about the brain, right? Which is actually an organ, and there are things that impact organs. And then you're also talking about this, this non-tangible thing called the mind, the psyche. And that is the muddy water, the gray area to where we're trying to figure out, okay, so is this all one specific thing for all human beings, or is it different on the individual? What is this, right? So let's start at the end, like you talked about, disease and disorder. All right. Now you know I'm gonna go with this. Disease is nothing but dis-ease within the body, right? And
Hmm.
disorders are nothing but disorder. So some things are
Hmm.
either not at ease or they're out of order within the body, right? So that
Hmm.
can goes for physical, mental, etc., even behavioral. Right, there's some
Right.
disorder in the behavior. Okay,
Hmm.
and so we kind of bring that back. Physical health, mental health, physical illness, mental illness. Okay. You may sneeze, and that could be a symptom of having a norovirus, right? But it also could be, maybe a little dusty, right, in the room, or some dog fur, some doggy dander may have gotten under your nose, right? So the symptoms, right, give us a Let me kind of pay attention to that, right? Now, if you sneeze and then you sneeze again like 5, 10 minutes later, your parents' antennas gonna go up like, hold on, you sick up there? Right? You sick, blow your nose, right? So we start to see the progressive symptoms. Okay. So if you see someone sneezing and coughing and runny nose, right? And their eyes are bloodshot and they moving lethargic, and you tell them, hey man, get it together, right? We're ignoring these symptoms that we know are potentially as a result of an illness kind of going on. Okay. And
Hmm.
so, let's kind of liken that to your mental health, right? Everyone is going to have healthy days and unhealthy days mentally, right? Sometimes, you may get in an argument, with your partner, your wife or your husband or something like that in the beginning of the day. All right, put you in the mood, right? Might be sour for an hour or two. Okay. Being angry or being sad for a few, moments, right, does not mean you have full blown depression. Okay.
Hmm.
Or having an anxious thought does not mean that, you suffer from generalized anxiety disorder. But what happens is in mental health, we ignore the sneezes and the coughs and the runny nose and the red eye. We wait until you have a temperature of 104 and we say, hold on, somebody's sick. It's like, damn, we haven't paid attention to the symptoms along the way. What is going on? Right. And so that's why we have to know, you know, everybody tell you about the common cold, the different over-the-counter medications. If the temperature is this, and we go to the doctor, we can go to the urgent care. If the urgent care open, we can set up an appointment with the PCP. Now we go to the emergency. We know all those different things for a sneeze and a cough. Okay. And so we have to start paying attention, number one, to people's behavior, right? The strong friend
Hmm.
is not going to come to you and say, hey, I'm not strong today. They're going to try to push through. But when you see
Yep.
them, and even for myself, I went through a battle for probably up and down, probably about 6 months, battle depression, and this
Yeah.
was when I quote unquote had it all, had it all. Business going great, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, business and this, that, and was probably one of my lowest, unhappiest moments. A lot of
Mm.
folks like, huh? What? Couldn't tell, right? Your strong friends are always gonna try to be strong. But on
Hmm.
the day to day, the folks in my village, they start saying, something ain't right, something not right, something not right. And luckily, they caught the sneeze and the cough early before my temp went up to 104. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we got to start looking at this thing like that. You know, we got to stop
Yeah.
waiting
So
to
like,
someone saying, I don't want to be here anymore. You know, and then we just throw them in inpatient. And it's
there's some like that's such a great way to look at this. And I know not a lot of people have that perspective on mental health. What are some sneezes and coughs
good
and runny
question.
noses? Like you have days where you don't feel good,
Right.
which is fine. But at what point do you start to wonder whether or not it's a chronic thing, you know? All right, so if this is your first time listening to this podcast, or if you're a frequent listener, you must realize by now that your health is nothing but a culmination of all the habits that you have on a daily basis. The good habits and the bad habits all make up what is your health. Now, the key is not to worry so much about tearing down those bad habits, which is important. What you want to do is stack up those good habits one by one so that they add up to have a positive impact on your overall health. Now, I'm going to tell you guys about one habit that I implement every single day, no matter what, that has positively contributed to my overall health. And that habit is drinking AG1 by Athletic Greens every single morning. AG1 is comprehensive daily nutrition that comes in the form of a powder that you mix with 10 to 12 ounces of water. Believe it or not, it actually tastes pretty good, and it's 75 vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and whole food sourced ingredients that you may notice helps you feel more clarity, a boost of energy, and even improving your digestive health. When I wake up in the morning, I head straight to the kitchen for my AG1, mix it with my 12 ounces of water, and I start sipping on it as I go throughout my daily routine. Oftentimes, I've noticed that it's cleared up some brain fog for me, and more importantly, it just gives me the confidence that I feel like I need to make good decisions throughout the rest of the day. Again, your health is nothing but a culmination of the habits that you have on a daily basis. And one good habit can set you up for a string of good habits as long as you do it consistently. And AG1 is easily the most consistent habit that I have in my routine that helps me feel like I'm taking ownership of my health. So if you want to take ownership of your health, now is the perfect time. AG1 is offering you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs to go along with your first purchase. To take advantage of that exclusive offer, just head over to athleticgreens.com/TCHP, or you can just go to the link in the description of this podcast. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/TCHP. Go check that out.
So when it comes to mental and emotional health, so mental, emotional, and behavioral, all three of those things are like in a equilateral triangle, right? 2 to 3 weeks of consistent change in a behavioral profile, that's when I say it's time for us to start throwing up at least on one red flag. Okay. So let's just say this person is, just really isolating themselves, don't really want to talk, not respond to text messages, hasn't really been active, in the way they normally are. If they have children, not showing up to games and stuff like that, if we're looking at about 2 or 3 weeks time of where this has been going on, okay, something has changed or something has happened, right? And that's not saying, okay, they may have some ideation or they may need to talk to a therapist. No, that's time for you to step in and say, hey friend, hey bro, like, I just kind of noticed this, if there's anything going on, just to let you know, I love you enough to be paying attention to what's kind of going on. So anytime, let's talk about it. Right. So that's the number one thing that I can say. I'm not expecting people to be clinicians, right? And paying attention to, doing applied behavioral analysis. But if you notice a shift over about 2 or 3 weeks time, that's your first red flag. Okay. Secondly, pay attention to what people are saying. Right. So if someone is saying that I'm tired over and over, that doesn't just mean that they're tired, they're sleepy. They are tired of this. They're tired of what their present setup. They're tired, right? And sometimes it really doesn't take a whole lot. It's, okay, let me see if I can take something off their plate. Or let me see if I can make a suggestion so they can reorganize some things. I had a business coach that I was working with, and I said that to him one time, and he said, okay, so let's untire you. And my ego took a hit. I'm like, man, you just running your mouth. But he said, today I want us to work on taking your entire week and putting it into 3 days so you can get 4 days of not being tired. And I said, wow. I just appreciated him hearing me.
Right. Yeah.
right? A lot of times when someone says, "Whew, I'm going through it. Yeah, this is hard. I'm tired." We start to play the oppression Olympics. Oh, I had to go through this too. Okay, we not talking about you. We talking about me, right? Thanks. Okay, so I just need to be strong again. Thanks a lot, right? So listen, like we're in the era of wellness and taking care of ourselves and self-care and all that other kind of stuff, right? Let's take care of each other, right? Like listen to folks, like
Hmm.
be an active listener to receive, not to respond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
connectivity is important in being able to pay attention to
Mhm.
those sneezes and coughs and things that are leading up. You gotta stay connected with your folks.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So just to recap that, y'all, like the the red flags leading up to mental illness, paying attention to those is how you maintain mental health because we are all going to have red flags like on days, right? But I guess allowing it to go unchecked, similar to allowing your cold or your virus to go unchecked, untreated, that's when things can get out of hand. So from that point, let's go along this same track of thinking, and let's say that somebody does not have a village, they're not talking to anybody, and they're just like taking these red flags and throwing them under the pillow so nobody can see them. Eventually, people have, I guess, like an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had patients that exhibited certain symptoms. I think that there are a lot of people walking around on a daily basis who are already there and don't know it. Are there any ways that you're able to identify that someone has already reached that breaking point?
Um, I guess just for me uniquely, most folks have already reached a breaking point when they reach out to us in a professional sense.
Hmm.
So that I mean that's the very easy answer.
Okay,
The
yeah, true.
difficult answer is um cool. So this is the hard truth. You don't know someone is at a breaking point until they break.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the hard, truthful answer that sucks. Thinking back, my mother dealt with anxiety, right? Just from childhood or what have you. And as an adult, she was able to satiate that by doing it, right? So as those racing thoughts would come, right? What if this happens? What if that? Then okay, let me mitigate this. Let me solve this. Let me prevent this. Let me prevent that from happening, right? And so you can only go that hard at life for so long before you run out of gas, all right? And so I remember her taking time away, like going away, on vacation, back home to Philly for a couple of weeks. As a child, right? As a child, you don't understand it, but you do kind of because like you see this person going like at the warp speed of Road Runner every single day, um, and you learn what you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
So that was, I really was able to see that firsthand. My mother dealt with, anxiety. My father dealt with, substance use disorder and alcoholism and all that. So, what was normal, in my childhood, all things that go on at home and everything, it was normal. It was Monday, right? I didn't know that I was
Hmm.
growing up in a home where both my parents technically battled, mental illness, right? Now, in our community, in
Yeah.
our culture, we don't want to put that hat on. We don't want to claim that. Nah, my daddy just, had a little, he drank a little, smoked a little. You know what I'm saying? My mama, nah, she was just getting it. Just strong black woman. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
keep playing around if you want to, right? Because then those
Exactly.
behaviors will be passed down, just like
Yeah.
hypertension can be passed down, or high cholesterol, can be passed down. So these behaviors can and will be passed down very whether genetically or through behavioral observation, behavioral modeling, that we pass out as well. So we've got to pay attention to ourselves because what's going on in here will affect everything that's going on out there.
Yeah, man, that's so good because that's something that we miss, especially in the diagnosis of disease, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. One of the first questions that doctors ask is, do these illnesses run in your family?
Mhm.
And while there is a genetic component to them, there is also a habitual component where
Yeah.
you inherit the habits of the people that had authority over you, that can end up, you know, wreaking havoc in your life. So, thinking along those same lines, and specifically thinking about underserved communities, because I think that's an area that you specialize in. What are some unique challenges that you've observed in your time practicing, um, where it's like almost like a pattern recognition that's oftentimes leading to poor mental health outcomes.
It, um, those social determinants of health,
Yep.
and I laugh because you asked that question. It took me back 6, 7 years ago when I was working at Morehouse School of Medicine. I was very privileged to be able to teach not an entire course, but a 1 day class on social determinants of health. And we talked about, we use like the Flint River, the Flint, Michigan study with the water crisis. And then also, the situation that happened in Baltimore, Freddie Gray. We used those to determine who would make it out of those situations alive, right?
Hmm.
And so one of the biggest issues that we see, of course, that's just connected with physical health, right? Stress, all right? Extreme levels of stress, we know is going to be, cause that brain to secrete that cortisol, right? And if that's just happening day after day after day, whether that's through PTSD, from hearing gunshots, your neighborhood, whether it's through your built environment, you're walking to school, walking to the bus stop, you're seeing trash and no grass in the yards, and that has an impact on your psyche, right? That day-to-day stress, staying in that heightened response state, right? It has an impact on your heart. Your heart can't relax. It's like just like your fist is being clenched nonstop, right? And if you do this, you can do this for about 30 seconds, but do this for about 2 hours. That's what's happening with your heart,
Hmm.
right? And so even things like
Yeah.
finances, right? Lack of finances, lack of resources. One parent, single parent households with multiple children, right? Causes a lot of stress. I'm even thinking about a lot of the clients that I see. I run a psychology clinic down there at Hugh Spalding right now, teenagers, all right? And so, of course, I'm talking to parents. A lot of his behavior, you see a lot of those same patterns, when one parent is handling the responsibility of multiple children, this has a cascading effect, right? Now
Yeah.
the psyche of the children staying in that home is starting to be impacted. So I guess through practice, when it comes to, just those underserved populations, resources, financial resources, is a barrier, because one, you have to have those that are willing to service communities, and two, having the know-how, right? And how do you do therapy with a mom or dad, that is having financial issues, who may not even be able to pay you, right? But it's a lot. It becomes very convoluted, right? And not to
Yeah.
go down that route, but that is one of the major issues that we just the day-to-day stress of staying alive, of meeting the demands of keeping your lights on, buying your kids some clothes, being able to sign them up, for sports. That junk weigh on you, man. It weigh
It
on you.
does. I
It
know.
weighs in, and
That's
it's just
interesting because what is like that's so tricky because like in my experience, especially like coaching people through health, and I'm realizing how similar this is now
yes, yes.
because
Yeah,
it is very hard to get someone to eat the right foods when they
mhm.
can't afford it. It's very hard to tell someone to stress less when you live in a stressful environment. And so it feels almost defeating. It's like, well, I can't help you until your situation is fixed. Do you kind of sometimes feel the same way? Like when you're trying
Oh,
to coach people through
absolutely, absolutely. But
yeah.
just when you take that oath, right? To serve people through different health specialties. You go in knowing that what your success rate may or may not be, but think about what the failure rate would be if you did not communicate those things. Working in a hospital has given me, I normally have always done outpatient work. This is still
Hmm.
outpatient clinic, but it's inside, the hospital setting. And so we talk about financial literacy being one of the biggest needs within, the community. Healthcare literacy is 10 times worse than, our financial know-how. At least we can, talk to you about the word saving and investing, etc. But if I ask somebody what their co-insurance rate is, they're like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Right. And that matters if you want to go see the doctor, right? It does matter. Also, just the follow-up. You can do everything in your
Hmm.
power to do a great assessment, right? Diagnose them appropriately, do a detailed treatment plan. I mean, you just make it ABC 1, 2, 3, hand it to that person, and they will look you dead in your eyes. They say, Doc, I ain't looked at this thing since the last time I saw you. We can go over it today, and in your mind, okay, well, this is gonna turn from 3 months of therapy into 3 years,
Hmm.
right? but it's part of the commitment. It's part of the process. It's part of, the oath that you take when you go into any level of medicine, whether it is,
Right.
surface level, community based, or whether you are, doing surgery to save someone's life, we are committed, to making sure that our people and our society is a healthier place. If not, you have no clue
Right.
how much community health, personal health, mental health, it's so intertwined. I could just give you story after story about how something happened. You can see something on the news. I've seen stories on the news, and they're sitting right here with my wife who just left the hospital working with that patient. And then their
Mm.
family's been referred to social services, and the social services consulted me. You have no
Mm.
clue how all these things are
Mm.
interconnected, right? So
That is,
it's mad.
yeah, it's obviously you work within the percentages going into it. You know what to expect, but man, it's so discouraging. And I think that you broke it down very well when you said that it really boils down to the literacy rates. Was your healthcare literacy, your financial literacy, um, and even like your literacy when it comes to like your own body, being able to identify what's happening and to implement strategies to fix that. That's something I'm curious about. Like, how do you, in your practice, how do you educate people and communities about the importance of prioritizing their mental health? Because without them knowing, then like you said, they get the paper from you and then they never look at it again for another, until they see you next time, which prolongs the treatment period. So
Yeah.
how do you how do you educate people? Man, I'm asking for myself too. Like, how do we like
Honestly,
how do we get people to get it?
it's where Holistic Atlanta was really born out of, right?
Hmm.
So I didn't just want to, start something and just name after myself because it was much bigger than me. I wanted to solve a problem, right? And the
Yeah.
problem was Atlanta is an unhealthy city. Okay. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to start looking at how can we do different things collectively in a holistic way to treat the entirety of Atlanta, right? And so when you
Right.
look at the individual, we talk about holistic practice, it's not just, with herbs and different medicines and everything. No, we look at the person holistically. So when it comes to mental health, it's not just your therapy. We look at your diet. We look at your sleep patterns. Oh, trust me, I pick up some game from Austin every now and then on some content. And shoot, you better believe I do. I'm like, yeah, man, in your glucose and your this, you might want to eat this before you eat that because it puts you in a little bit of. I am so serious, right? Like I learned. This is a learning game for me because each
Yeah.
one teach one, right? So if I can pick up something from someone I know, let me implement that into myself. Number one is bringing up the value of what I bring to the table, but also it's
Hmm.
teaching people, right? Therapy is not the quick
Yeah.
fix. It's not. It's not a pill. Even a pill does not solve your problems. It just makes you feel good right now, but it does not change your environment. So you have to look at everything going on in your life holistically, your relationships, right? Family, all right? How are you acting, moving towards your goals? What's in your circle, your personal circle, right? Are you exposing yourself to good content? Or are you exposing yourself to junk online? Are you reading?
Yeah.
Look at yourself holistically. Right, be honest with yourself. Be vulnerable. And damn that vulnerability word again, right?
That
Be
vulnerability.
honest. Something that I started practicing again, honestly, getting in the mirror, like physically getting in the
Hmm.
mirror and just looking at myself. Right, we
Hmm.
really don't do that. It's kind of weird. All right, literally
Hmm.
looking at myself and talking to myself, not in my
Hmm.
mind, but literally, right, and owning you know, the things you do great, things you're not that great at, right? But holistic is about the entirety, right? The entirety of the person, the entirety of your approach. But those are three things: therapy, diet, and sleep. We focus on those the
Yeah.
most.
I love that, man. That makes me happy. That's all I
Right.
talk about is diet and sleep. Um, Speaking of like holistic Atlanta, and like your mission in this city, which you can really like replicate in any city across the world, especially urban cities. It's like that there's a lot of unhealthy, a lot of the population is unhealthy. How exactly does technology, like telemedicine and your virtual health platform, how has that been like or maybe it hasn't. How has it been like a game changer in your practice, allowing you to reach more people, and like improve mental health outcomes?
Honestly, it has improved the mental health of the therapist a lot more, right? So you would be so
Really?
surprised on how stressed out a whole bunch of therapists are, right? Like we have
Yeah.
plenty of knowledge and information, but whoo, man, like it's hard. It's hard being a resource. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that again. It is hard being a resource and being an outlet that gives the plug the power. Okay.
Mhm.
And so you must understand a position that you're taking on. All right. And for me, technology, it was a no-brainer. We had the brick and mortar, we had our, in-person office, and we loved the synergy that was happening in there. When the pandemic came, right, then this as a businessman, when society pivots, you better already have been ahead of that curve. You should have seen the pivot coming, right? And so fortunately I did, in a couple of different ways, not only with, moving more towards telemedicine, digging into research, seeing how that was, connected with folks. We took an even further leap, into virtual reality, right? And really started utilizing, different
Mhm.
platforms with AI, and AR and VR to really kind of create some additional options. But even from a business perspective, we went ahead and started our foundation because we understood that there's so much more impact that we can have outside of the therapy session, right? Some folks may need a life coach. Some folks may need, some literature to read. Some folks may need an actual program, where they're at. So we want to make sure that we, have a wide stance when it comes to impact. And so that, when we
Mhm.
walk away and Holistic Atlanta is still standing, 50 and 100 years from now, we can point to that and say we wanted to build a resource that Atlanta could go to, and we've been able to do that, and it's been able to become, whatever it is that it becomes down the road, so but technology
Yeah.
was a very, again, it was more of a conscious pivot, right? To be able to decrease stress on our end, but also to create that impact. So huh, we have 6 therapists on the team now, that I've been able to hire over the last couple of years. We are we are providing services here in Metro Atlanta, across the state of Georgia. We are now in the DMV area. So we're servicing clients up there in the Maryland area right now, getting ready to get licensed in Virginia, take over the whole DMV. We are right now training some budding practitioners to hopefully open up Holistic Miami within the next couple of years. So we're going
Come
to go ahead,
on,
like you
man.
said, taking this thing nationwide, scaling, right? Just
Yeah.
scaling and proving that what we do here can be done in other cities in their way, right? Just be able to have that continuous impact and creating opportunities for other therapists to be able to grow up under our umbrella.
I love that, man. I got one final question for you, and
Yeah.
this is like a personal question for me.
Okay.
I'm interested in, like, you just said that going telemedicine and doing things virtually was really helpful for the therapist, and I can see why, because it's almost like you're like a sponge in a sense, and you're
Hmm.
taking people's problems and trying to interpret them and offer solutions. I oftentimes wonder, like, with the advice or recommendations that you guys give to your patients, how is a therapist able to separate their like own personal biases that are a result of their life experiences to objectively treat their patients? Is that possible?
Yeah. Um, 99.99999% possible. No.
Yeah.
100% no, right? First, I think it's very appropriate to, if you know that you have a specific case you may be biased on, it's completely fine to refer that person to someone else, right? Like you
Hmm.
stay within your scope of competence. That's how you stay out of trouble,
Right.
right? And that's how you keep yourself from, causing chaos, right? Um,
Yeah.
the way there's some training, that we go through. Empathy is something that I hold on to a lot. Therapy has revealed to me that ain't nobody perfect, especially me. And so we damn
Hmm.
sure better not be judgmental on folks because it's a lot of
Hmm.
people. And I work with some folks, some very prominent people here in Atlanta, right? Ain't nobody perfect. Nobody perfect. There's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff that you would never even know. Okay. So
Yeah.
I dare not show up to a therapy session, with implicit bias, with intention of trying to call. No, it's not my place to convince you of anything. right? My job is
Hmm.
not to solve your problems. My job is just to
Right.
teach you and guide you and coach you and train you to develop the skills that you can solve any problem that comes across your path 10 years from now, right? So my thoughts and opinions, you know, matter but don't matter. Also
Hmm.
within session, just over time you become very skilled. The power of words,
Yeah.
appropriate wording, language is so important. All right. So I've adopted, the before I say something, if I know I'm about to give my opinion, I'll say opinion, not fact. Right. Or, if I know if I'm gonna say something that may kind of hit a little rough, I may say, all right, now brace yourself on this. Just put your seatbelt on and rock with me on this one, but it's gonna sting a little. So I preface it. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not there to cause harm or to get someone to do what I think is the right thing. Okay. The other part is that once the session is over, I take that hat off and put that right there where it's at, right? So that I can walk across that threshold and get back to my own personal life. Okay. Is
Right.
there some blending over? I guess kind of through like debriefing conversation at home. So if I was a construction worker, I'd be talking about the construction site, right?
Right.
But for the most part, of course, we maintain confidentiality. But when I take the therapy hat off, I take it off so that when I put it on, I can be the best therapist. I can be present. I can show up, etc. So it's some of that is compartmentalizing. I've had to learn the power of compartmentalizing to be an added benefit, not to run away or to hide from things, but to be an added benefit. So let me focus on this right now because this is the appropriate time. I can't worry about Saturday on Tuesday as we still got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to get through. So Saturday, sit your ass down there on Saturday. And I get to you when I get to you. But yeah, that's my approach. I can't speak for everyone, but what I've learned
Yeah.
is when you walk through that threshold from your office back into your life, you got to lead therapy right there where it's at. And by doing that, you'd be surprised. There's some folks you may not talk to in months, and you get in session with them, and you literally pick up right where you left off at. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's encouraging for those who may be on the fence about getting therapy for themselves, and you're worried about like choosing the right therapist. You have, especially if you're local in Atlanta, there's no reason for you to be not going with anyone else. Like I highly recommend
Hey,
talking to Holistic Atlanta, not just because Dr. Gay has been doing this for such a long time, but he's demonstrated expertise and he understands the importance of taking a holistic approach to your well-being. And in the current environment that we live in today, where pushing pills is one of the primary options that people go to. Not that there's a problem with taking medicine, but there are a lot of different avenues that need to be explored. And it's so refreshing to hear from a practicing therapist who actually goes through that and even talks about diet and sleep, knowing that those things have such a huge impact on mental health. Man, Dr. Gay, where can people find you to learn more about you, your practice,
yeah.
maybe
So
reach out for some services?
I'll drop my info really quickly, but I gotta give my shout outs to my people, man, because
Come
I
on.
speak for a large village of folks that do this work every single day. So me personally, if you want to reach out to me, info at holisticatlanta.com, referral at holisticatlanta.com if you are ready to get started for services. You can go to our website, www.holisticatlanta.com, click on register now, takes you right to our referral form. We're on social media, of course, at Holistic Atlanta. My personal handle is at the ATL LPC. But my village is so super important to me. Shout out to my girl Sierra Hillsman, Legacy Speaks, doing her thing out here. Ariane Byron, the Emotional Exchange, wellness for entrepreneurs. She has built out a really great niche. My girl Maria Gates, spiritual homegirl, doing phenomenal stuff. These are people that work with us on a day-to-day in clinic while also creating really good content and being out here in the community and connecting with folks. Salsa Shane, Shanti Dash, Jewel Gooding, the whole crew over there. We have worked hand in hand for so many years. And I just watched Salsa Shame just grow. As a matter of fact, the NFLPA, the Players Association, just posted a huge post with Hayden Hurst today. And we got on the Salsa Shame t-shirt. So I'm very proud to be a part of that organization as well.
Come on.
And then shout out to Austin, you and your team. You and your wife, y'all are doing some amazing work. I've always admired not really from afar, really kind of like right there up and close. Like I'm always reaching out and commenting and you know, I do that with any and everyone. The Counseling Brothers of Atlanta, you know, another group of Black male therapists here in Atlanta, they're ready to serve, you know, so, you know, as much as we hear about, man, it's hard to find a good therapist. Let's peel back one layer. We're ready. We're here. We're ready. We're doing the work. You know, people are already benefiting. So take that first step. You know, we right here with you guys along the way.
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Take that first step because they are here. And that's it. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Culture of Health podcast. Be sure to rate the podcast, leave a review if you've got a couple of minutes. And share it with a friend. That's how we grow the show. That's how we're able to impact more lives. We're not in here talking about bull and relationships, like all the other crazy stuff on these other podcasts. This is real information. No, this ain't that. We're here to provide value. So be sure to share it with a friend. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. All right, peace.